is a prick, and he disrespected him. He also implied that Brett was having an affair on his then wife with another WWE talent, Sunny, real name Tammy Sitch, which we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about. She was just in the news recently. Apparently, she drunk drove and killed a guy. Not gonna talk. Yeah, not gonna talk about it. Not gonna talk about
it. These folks.
Yeah, and Shawn Michaels was applying this not only backstage but also on national television. When reality was he was having an affair with Sunny. Literally in front of her then boyfriend, later husband, a guy named Chris Candido, who later committed suicide.
Oh my God!
Years later, yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up.
All of this is tragic.
It is tragic. So Vince is worried. He's got these two parties. It's going on and on and on. He's worried about it. He doesn't know what to do. So this is where it gets a little fuzzy on who had the idea. Who had the idea of a screw job? Shawn Michaels in his book says that he came up with the idea. Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, who is now the an executive vice president and the son-in-law of Vince McMahon.
Oh my gosh.
Said that he came up with the idea. One of their head writers and bookers, a guy named Vince Russo, who is another prick.
Goodness.
Said it was his idea. Generally, the person I believe that it came up with this idea is a guy named Jim Cornette, who was one of their writers. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Jim, like wrestling fans, we know who Jim Cornette is. Jim Cornette has worked.
The name is very familiar.
Yeah, Jim Cornette has worked a very long time within wrestling, backstage, in front of stage. He was he started as a photographer. His mom in Louisville, Kentucky. He's worked as a photographer, then on air act, behind the scenes act. He's managed the Midnight Express tag team. Avatar. He's managed Yokozuna. He's pretty much worked for every major wrestling company, past and even some present. He has his own podcast, the Jim Cornette Experience.
Oh, okay.
Either you hate the guy.
Yeah, or his personality is.
Yeah, he's probably dickish. Yeah, it can be dickish. He is one of the greatest talkers that ever talked in professional wrestling. One of the greatest managers. And he's a pretty knowledgeable wrestling historian. That being said, I think he's a fucking dick. And he literally can't see past his own face, especially in terms of current professional wrestling, but here nowhere. But still, I believe it was his idea to come up with the screw job. Supposedly, from what Jim Cornette had said, is that they were in Vince McMahon's house. Himself, Vince Russo, who Jim Cornette cannot stand. They have a blood feud. This is who literally Jim Cornette said he said he would fucking try to kill Vince Russo if he ever got in another room with him again. And it's Vince Russo and Jim Cornette, and they're trying to come up with the idea of how to get the belt off of Brett, because they don't want to take the belt off of him before the event, because you have a main event for the WWF title between him and Shawn Michaels. You can't he doesn't want to trust him to take it after the event because he's not sure if Brett's going to show up to the next night on Raw.
Right.
So he doesn't know what to do. So Cornette says, well, why don't we just screw the guy? And from Cornette's recollection and how he's telling it, Vince Russo and Vince McMahon go, what kind of screw? It's like, just double cross him. And then Cornette lays out, he starts talking about history. He starts talking about the original screw job, which it happened in the, I believe, 1930s. I forgot the specifics of it, but I'm not going to go into it. But also the MSG screw job, which is a little less known screw job. Yeah, it was during the 80s. The women's champion at the time was a woman named Wendy Rector, who was pretty much almost on the same level as Hulk Hogan doing the Rocket Wrestling Connection. And but she was making far less money, like every other woman wrestler at the time. But she was still getting a lot of press, as much press as Hulk Hogan. She was during her WrestleMania match, she was led to the ring by Cyndi Lauper. She had been in Cyndi Lauper's music videos. There was a Rocket Wrestling, Hulk Hogan's Rocket Wrestling cartoon. She was the main woman on it. So she's getting a lot of press, but she's not getting paid that much. And her contract came up and she asked for a pay raise. And Vince McMahon didn't want to give her a pay raise. And he's just like, I just want her gone. Because she's like, look, I want a pay raise because like I'm just gonna go back to Japan or whatever. So what she had done was Vince McMahon got another wrestler, the Fabulous Moolah, who was back like sort of a legendary wrestling figure during that time. We'll come to find out that might have been probably one of the worst persons ever. Well, that's a story for a different day. Put on a mask and a bodysuit and Wendy didn't know what was going on. And during the match, Moolah is being really physical with her, more physical than was supposed to be. It rolls her up and the referee counts to 3 when her shoulder was up and awards the match in the WWF Women's title to Moolah. And then Moolah's portraying this character called the Black Spider. She takes off the mask and it's Moolah. And Wendy Richter figured out what had gone on. She went to the back, grabbed her stuff, didn't bother to change, left the arena, got in a taxi, and didn't come back to the WWE until like 2010. And that was just to be inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
But she was done with the WWE. And Vince kind of forgot about that. It was like, oh, yeah, I did do that. So they lay out this plan to screw Bret. So they get to the event, a Survivor Series. McMahon was really insisted that Hart drop the title. But Bret was like, no, I'm not doing it to Shawn tonight in Montreal. I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
Like, I'm just not going to do it. I'll do it before. I'll do it after. So he's like, no. So finally that is done. They get to that night they get before that night. They start setting up the plan. So one day before Survivor Series, McMahon had met with Pat Patterson, one of his backstage producers, and Michaels in a hotel room in Montreal and planned a screw job. It's unclear how many people knew of the impending betrayal, but McMahon's close aide, Gerald Biscoe, another producer, was involved with the planning. Right. Jim Ross, famous commentator, and eventually executive vice president of talent relations for the WWE before he was let go, had insisted he didn't know about the screw job will take place. Throughout, many, including various members of Hart's family, thought he was involved. Ross had stated that Jerry Lawler, because Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross are commentating for that Survivor Series that night, also did not know of the screw job beforehand. Hart and Michaels had met with Pat Patterson to discuss the match setup and plan, during which Hart agreed to allow Michaels to put him into the sharpshooter hold at a time when the ref would be unconscious, as Patterson suggested. The rest of the match was planned and proceeded as thus. Hart would grab Michaels' foot and reverse the hold, putting him in the sharpshooter. Michaels would submit to the hold, but the referee would still be unconscious. Hart would then let go of the hold and try to revive the ref, but Michaels would hit Hart with his finisher, Sweet Chin Music, which was a super kick.
Sweet Chin Music.
That's what he called it, Sweet Chin Music. Put you in
remember.
The seat. You're walking after midnight. And they make the pin. The second referee would then run to the ring with Owen Hart, Bret's brother, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and Davey Boy Smith, Bret Hart's other brother-in-law, following close behind. The second referee would start to count, but Owen and Davey would break the pin. The original referee would then recover and start to make the count, but Hart would kick out, setting up about 5 more minutes of brawling that would result in a double disqualification.
Okay.
And also at the same time that this is going on, Bret Hart is having a documentary made about him.
Okay.
And camera crews are following around. The documentary is called Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows. In the documentary, Hart had said his fears were largely expunged because he was close friends with the referee during the match, Earl Hebner, and trusted him implicitly. Asked by Hart, Hebner swore on his children that he would never double cross Hart and that he would rather quit his job than participate in a screw job.
Okay.
However, according to Shawn Michaels' account of the events in his 2005 autobiography, Heartbreak and Triumph, Michaels informed Hebner of the plan only on Sunday evening, just as Survivor Series is about to commence. This contradicted what Hebner had said on the 2003 edition of WWE Confidential, an old behind the scenes show, claiming that he first knew of McMahon's plans only 10 minutes before the match finished, and out of panic, followed the bell ringing. He ran out of the ring and through the crowd, after which he locked himself in his hotel room for the night, refusing to speak to anyone. Right. Tensions and excitement were high as the wrestlers and officials congregated on Survivor Series. Hart was anxious over the match finish and had been warned of a prospect of a screw job by his brother-in-law, Davey Boy Smith, as well as another wrestler named Vader who experienced similar situations while wrestling in Japan. They advised Hart to be alert, not to lie on his back for too long, kick out from pinfall counts immediately as to avoid a fast count, and not allow himself to be placed in submission holds. All this for a supposed fake sport.
Yeah, right.
All right. The Molson Center in Montreal was sold out with 20,000 fans in attendance. Emotions were running high because of the Hart and Michaels rivalry, as well as at the same time the U.S. versus Canada storylines. I'm not going to go too much into it, but pretty much Bret Hart had started saying disparaging things about the United States becoming a heel, and Michael was supposed to be representing the U.S., even though he really didn't care. He only cared about himself. But whatever. And also mixed signals and war words between Hart, McMahon, and Michaels in WCW further fueled the anticipation.
Right.
So there was also some legitimate concerns that Michaels would be attacked during the planned in-crowd brawl by fans angered by his actions demeaning Canadian flag. Shawn Michaels during one event Bret Hart brought out a Canadian flag, and Shawn Michaels was at ringside in one event, and Shawn Michaels took the flag, put it in his nose, and started dancing around with it. Also, during this match, before this match, Shawn Michaels grabbed a flag out of a fan's hand and started pretty much gyrating over it.
Oh boy!
He took the flag again. He rubbed the flag against his crotch, picked his nose with it, and later humped it.
Why?
Michaels maintains that this flag desecration was actually suggested by Hart, an effective way to draw heat and emotion.
Ridiculous.
Heat is like hatred. So yeah,
I was going to say rage.
Yeah. Once the match began, Hart and Michaels brought out their performance outside the ring and into the crowd while being followed by McMahon and WWE officials. That was another thing about the match. Vince McMahon, at that time, was really known as an announcer.
Right.
He had been known as just an announcer for a long time. Even before this, I just thought of Vince McMahon as an announcer or something. Maybe he's behind the scenes, producer or something. I didn't know he owned the company before this match.
Ah.
That was a lot of people didn't know that he owned the company. So it was weird seeing him and a bunch of guys sitting up there, a bunch of officials standing up there going, well, why are y'all in the middle of this match? As the climax of the match approached, the two wrestlers returned to the ring while WWF officials continued to order more personnel to ringside. Hart's suspicion was first aroused by noticing that Vince McMahon was not at the announcer's table before commentary, and that on-screen commissioner Sergeant Slaughter, remember him?
Oh my god!
Dude had his own G.I. Joe figure. Yeah,
he was on the show. They made him a character on G.I. Joe.
Yeah, they initially got him fired by Vince McMahon.
Slaughter is now a part of G.I. Joe. Who knew that was in my head? How much rich does that song need to pay me right now? Yeah. Oh my god, that was awful. I am ashamed.
Man, yeah.
That's crazy.
Like he got Vince fired him. Vince fired him when he did